Dylan, Texas outguns the Warhawks of ULM 51-3, and the score maybe is not quite as indicative of how far apart this game really was. And as always, guys, this quick reaction video is part of HornSports' Longhorns coverage. We appreciate all of your support. So, Dylan, to begin, did you have any major takeaways from Arch Manning's first career start?
Nothing too major, Devon. In terms of the slow start, we were both kind of correct on that one, where it took the offense to get a little bit going. Arch Manning throwing a pick. So obviously not the exact way that you'd want him to start off. I know the stat line, he had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions with 29 attempts. So they doubled the amount of passes that they were going with, but he only had a 51% completion rate. But I thought the team looked good. I think the big key from this game is just Jadon Blue being an absolute monster. 25 attempts, 124 yards, 5 yards per attempt, Devin, and 3 touchdowns. So they've been able to win games throwing the ball. This game, what I saw, they were able to win the game ultimately with a slew of different running backs getting some work.
Dylan, it seemed like the most quiet 124-yard rush game ever. And like you
Yeah.
said, 5-yard average. His longest run was 20 yards. So a lot of those runs were exactly 5 yards. A lot of times you get slanted data depending on, someone
Mm.
taking it to the house. But Blue was definitely a welcome sight. There was no Trey Wisner last night in this game as well. So health is still an issue at running back. And it looks like for the most part, Dylan, unless something secretive happened, it looked like the running backs were no more injured than they were in the prior week. So that's good
Mm.
if you're a Longhorn fan. And then, as Dylan said, we were talking about it before, unless you wanted to jump in, but Quinn Ewers, or not Quinn Ewers, Quinn Ewers was looking animated on the sideline, showing some leadership qualities when the camera was pointed to him. And Dylan, Sark had said that Ewers was pretty much his job for this game was to go to Arch and calm him down and keep things easy because Arch
Mm.
likes to kind of get in his own head if things aren't going right. But Dylan, that's the sign of a competitor. But Arch, as you were mentioning earlier, had some ups and downs in this game, but it's a learning moment for sure. And if you're going to have a learning moment, ULM is the team to do it against, quite frankly. He did throw for 2 touchdown passes and took Dylan maybe more deep shots than I've ever seen
Yeah.
in the Sark era. It doesn't seem like we've seen this many deep throws from a quarterback, and that was just in pretty much one quarter of play. However, 2 interceptions on that first drive. That pick was not pretty, Dylan. It just, you escaped pressure, escaped a sack, got drilled, but just kind of threw
Mm.
up a prayer, and that didn't work. And then the second interception, I don't know if you can really blame on him. I don't remember, Dylan, if you knew if it was tipped by Blue or a defender, but either way, a tipped pass resulted in a pick. Just can't really fault him there. But defensively, Dylan, was there any pride moments for you in this game in terms of guys that you've been watching and making plays?
Well, I think the big thing was coming off of that Arch interception, or ultimately Texas not being able to capitalize on a drive, giving the ball back to ULM, and General Booty just instantly throws a pick to Anthony Hill, who just bobbles it, tip drill to himself, and then takes it almost in for a touchdown. So that was ultimately also called back on a suspect block in the back call. So I obviously Anthony Hill just being all over the field, what he's able to do defensively for this team, I think just says a lot. But again, Devin, I think with Texas is just with this team, like it's they're so well balanced, right? Like Arch can struggle, but against teams that aren't necessarily up to the talent level that Texas is, this defense is just able to dominate. Like I think General Booty he had 8 completions for 19 attempts for 42 yards passing and an interception. Right. So this defense is just it's an insanely well put together team that is just good in all areas right now, or at least haven't been showing any weakness against any teams that they faced so far.
And I think I saw a stat after the game that Texas is only with Georgia in teams that have not allowed a touchdown when they've gotten into the red zone defensively. And so that's quite impressive. It seems to be kind of the Kwiatkowski way, Dylan, over his tenure here,
Mm.
where the defense suddenly gets better in the red zone. It's like where was that on the drive leading up to it. But once they get there, it seems like teams have to settle for field goals, and that's been the case so far this season. And then Dylan, you're
Well, that's
talking.
a good defense, though.
Yep.
In today's NFL, like teams are gonna be able to move the ball, specifically in the SEC. And if you can let them get to the red zone, but they can't get that touchdown, that's a great defense.
You have NFL in your mind in today's college football, but yes, SEC.
Well, no, I'm saying, but in the NFL as well, like that is modern day defenses in general. It's very hard to stop offenses the way that they're designed now.
Oh, it's just spread the defense out and take as many shots as possible. And like you're saying, Anthony Hill Jr. doing the cage dog. I mean, he had a sack early in the game. Then, as you said, the self-tipped drill interception. And he joked with Jahdae Barron following the game that Trey Moore owes him some money for taking back
Mm.
that pick six. But Dylan,
And that's the thing. I feel like he means it too, right? Like I don't feel like he's ever joking.
it is funny because the way he plays on the field is very different from how he acts off the field, Dylan. Off the field, he seems like the nicest guy ever, you know? And then on the field, I don't even want to get near him because he's going to just incinerate my quarterback. But in addition to Anthony Hill, LaFau at linebacker as well also had a sack and forced a safety. So Texas at linebackers, that was the question mark coming into the season. We obviously knew Hill had the potential and he looks good, usually rushing the passer, but he's doing a little bit more coverage this season. LaFau also is stepping up big time. And Dylan, just as you're talking about the defense, it's been a while since the defense has been the one that's kind of carried the team. And I know the offense, of course, is putting up big numbers, but so far this season, it's been really the one unit you can trust without any worries. But yet again, I say that, and Texas is scoring 51 against ULM and putting up big numbers against everybody else. So all the units have been doing pretty darn good.
They Sark really did build this team the way that you should when in terms of the trenches. I feel like the defensive line, front seven in general, even with losing key starters last year, is still insanely good. And then when you look on the offensive line, right, Arch Manning might have made some bad throws through two picks, but God, there's just so much time. And then they're getting push up front. So even if Jadon Blue, you know, can't break a tackle, he's getting 5 yards before he's getting tackled or touched, right? Like it's an insane, it's just insanely well built and put together. And it just shows with these. Again, I know the strength of schedule hasn't been the greatest in terms of some of the teams they've played other than Michigan, but like God, like they're dominating teams as they should, and it's going to carry over into the SEC play.
And speaking of SEC play, the first game for the Longhorns in the SEC is against Mississippi State. Dylan, Texas is already favored in the opening line by about 35 points, and Mississippi State dropped a game to Florida this past Saturday, and Florida has not looked too great either. It's a big win for Napier because he needs it. But overall, Dylan, this Texas team is just shaping up, and the youth is also just getting better over time as well. Ryan Wingo, although not as crazy as a performance as he had against UTSA, is looking like Randy Moss, and every single play he either is getting a big chunk or he drew a DPI against ULM,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah.
still the third or fourth guy on that list. But any last thoughts from the end of the quote-unquote preseason that Sark is calling it?
Texas is right where they should be in terms of expectations going into this year and how they're going to handle business. They've looked the part, and right now it's going to be fun in the SEC with Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia, and Texas being those top four teams right now from the conference. And we're gonna see. We're gonna see. But man, this is exciting.
Are you trying to mention the Tennessee win over Oklahoma? We'll see how that shapes up. One game at a time if you're Texas, though. You don't worry about Oklahoma until you get to Oklahoma. However, it is just past Mississippi State on that schedule, so it's going to be entertaining to watch. And as Dylan says, just a good time to be alive if you're watching SEC football. But more important than our quick game recap, how do you feel about this Longhorns team following their big win against ULM and Arch Manning's first career start? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, Have a great rest of your day.